My interviewee today is going to be my mother, Deb Myrie. She is a business officer at the Lindner College of Business out of the University of Cincinnati. I'm going to be asking her some questions regarding the organization and how communication takes place within an establishment of that sort. So let's get started. My first question is regarding the communication that takes place. Would you say that in the organization, communication is more very strictly from sender to receiver to where it's just simply one way? Or do you think that it's more transactional, meaning that there is room for messages to be interpreted, sent back and forth, questions asked, and things of that nature?
I would say overall, it is an environment of collaboration, which will be your second point. It's an environment where students, faculty, and staff, and the community, and various donors and other constituents work together for positive outcomes.
Yes, and that segues us kind of right into my next question. You know, in a university, it's obvious that there are levels to administration, to staff, to how the school works. But would you say that the University of Cincinnati follows a more classical approach where there's very strict divisions of labor, not room for much um, communication between the two, where it's very apparent who does what and for what reasons? Or do you think that it could take a more human relation or human resource approach where relationships are important, dialogue is important, and the most important thing are the needs of each individual employee and how they reach that self-actualization stage?
Well, Claire, I think the environment encompasses all of that. First of all, there's definitely a hierarchy. For example, if you look at the president's office and you look at those senior vice provosts who report and vice presidents who report to him, and then you get to the deans and the various department heads and the various staff members, that is very much a hierarchy. However, in terms of getting the work done in the day-to-day, it's a very strong collaborative environment. For example, there's a staff senate, there's a faculty senate, and there's various affinity groups that are involved in having input to decisions and generating positive outcomes.
Okay. Now, universities are obviously more liberal institutions, more free-thinking institutions than most organizations. How would you say at the University of Cincinnati that staff members, faculty members are encouraged to, this will fit into the more human resources model, are encouraged to, you know, take their work and have that work help guide them to find more of their identity, more of their self-actualization needs, to keep everybody working hard and feeling fulfilled in their work? What are some things that you see puts into place or that you feel has made you feel that way when you work there?
Well, definitely there's several things. For example, I could say search committees. For example, whenever there's a position that is open, typically the hiring manager is identified, but the process is that you then create a search committee, usually of 6 or more individuals, represented from faculty, staff, or students, to go about the hiring process. This way everybody has input into the selection, and we hope that it will be an unbiased decision and the most well-qualified person will be selected. Now, in terms of being able to give your input, again, there's, in my case, the staff senate, in which individuals go through election process. I was elected this year for a one-year term in staff senate. That would be able to, we would be able to represent staff members, get their input, provide input, and be able to sit at the table with the board of trustees and others who make decisions.
Okay. Now my next question is still in the frame. This will be more guided more toward the human relations. How would you describe the dialogue that takes place at UC? What kind of things happen so that the dialogue is mindful and that what people are saying is honest, true, and it gives a sense that it will help things move forward in regards to happiness, morale, and getting things done in the workplace?
Well, I think there's so many aspects of that. There are opportunities, and I will say the benefits provided by the university. For example, tuition remission. Everyone, I'm focusing more on staff, has the opportunity for career development, whether that be through attending conferences in your field, whether that is seeking another degree or other certifications. So I think those are ways that help us contribute to the organization and develop and grow as employees.
Definitely. Now I kind of want to start getting into kind of University of Cincinnati as a system. Of course, universities, they're usually sprawling. I mean, it would be hard for a university to just have all the information, everything centered in one place. So kind of just tell me about the parts of the systems that come together in the building you see, or at least a little about your own part, and what you think that pulls into making the whole entire organization run?
Well, I'm not sure that I understand the correct question, but I will attempt to answer it. So in the sense that I am a business officer, that is basically the finance and accounting function and HR function of the organization. So the way the organization is set up, there are central partners, business partners that work in central HR that we can consult with and collaborate with for important decisions around employee relations and things like that. We also have the provost office where there are a set of professionals who help us in the HR functions and with financial policy and things like that. So in interpreting policy, making sure that we implement the right kinds of policies in the college and the various units, we have resources across the university to help us to be able to, one, study policies and come up with positive outcomes.
Now, when you're talking about policies, this was actually my next point. How do you think that the policies that are established within the organization for, not like the school rules, but that the ones that the faculty and staff follow, how do these policies help you to navigate the organization, to understand the underlyings of the organization, and to ultimately work within it?
Well, I think policies are guidelines and they're standards that the university uses to ensure, for example, in hiring practices. One of the policies or practices is to ensure that the Office of EOC is involved in every search committee kickoff, for example. This way, every search committee member has an opportunity to look at statistics and also to hear the same message with regard to the university's commitment to diversity and inclusion, and to make us aware that as human beings, often we have bias. It's nothing wrong with having bias. However, we must be aware of those bias, and we must be able to make distinctions when we're making decisions that they are free from any type of bias.
Thanks, Mom, for answering my questions and for giving us some insight into what it truly means to be a Bearcat.
Thanks, Claire.